Seperti biasa jangan lupa tekankan 0322602412.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm still in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I've been all over the place. I've been to different cities, and alhamdulillah, it's very nice here. Very nice. The reason I'm making this short video, there's an issue that I think needs to be sort of guided a little bit here. And let me preface this with this right here. When I was in college, undergrad and grad, one of the issues that I had was how I filtered sociological information. Okay? My field of study is sociology. How I filtered information was problematic for many of my professors. I filter all information through an Islamic filter. Everything goes through Islam. If what you give me coincides with Islam, I take it. If what you give me is against Islam, I reject it wholeheartedly. This is problematic for several reasons in sociology. Technical reasons that I'm not going to, necessarily get into, but I feel like it's only a problem because the status quo wants it to be a problem, because they choose to determine what's a valid source of information. So when you use a religious book as your source of information, it's deemed invalid. Therefore, it's rejected by them. Whereas, as Muslims, we see the Quran and the Sunnah as from Allah. It's wahi. It's right. It's exact. And we accept it. Okay, so with that said, when I would write papers in undergrad and graduate school, I was often told to revise it, to change it. I bumped heads with a professor or two here or there in some of the things that I said and some of the things that I wrote. Again, we're talking filtering through an Islamic lens. One professor wrote on a paper of mine, I want you to filter through a sociological lens. Well, the sociological lens is determined by people who are more than likely atheist, agnostic, or some type of what would be Islamically considered as some type of sexual deviant. These sexual deviants and these atheists and whatnot are very prominent in sociology, very prominent. So they get to determine what's the norm. They get to determine or tell the people what's correct, and they also define terms. They define or give us the proper understanding from their perspective. Doesn't matter what the topic is. They define it. They tell us what it is. As students, I had the benefit of going back to school and being a little bit older, a little more mature, a little bit more well-traveled. And I had the benefit of experience that some younger people may not. So they may take what they're given and take it hook, line, and sinker. Whereas I didn't do that. I don't do that. I say that to say what? There seems to be a resurgence of black pride amongst the Muslims in America, indigenous African-American Muslims, descendants of slaves in America. Lots of posts, lots of video, lots of chatter in reference to black pride, defining self, changing the economic and social situation of African Americans in general. And I absolutely unequivocally agree with that. I believe that African Americans need to define their own agency. I believe it was Carter G. Woodson who said that if you can control a man's thinking, then you don't have to be concerned with what his actions are. You don't have to worry about his actions. You control the thinking. So we must define our own agency. We have to define us and what's important to us. And we have to determine what we want to do or how we want to move forward as a people. With that said, all of that needs to be filtered through an Islamic lens. We have to make sure that we do not become the transgressors, thereby losing the pleasure of Allah. We don't want to gain the anger or the wrath of Allah because we go overboard. Love of self, self-defining, wanting good for you and your own people, there's nothing wrong with that. But unbridled, unfiltered, it can go overboard. And if it goes overboard, then you become like the people who oppressed you in the beginning. So I just wanted to drop these thoughts that I was having this morning as I left Fajr and left the cafe to go eat, that we have to make sure that we are running and passing information, feelings, thoughts against the Quran and the Sunnah to make sure that we are in alignment with that. Because if we're not in alignment, then, we are causing problems for ourselves and the outcome that we're looking for will not be reached. So I appreciate those of you who listen. I appreciate any feedback, and everyone have a good day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.